Is this light bothering you, Mark?
The light's good, baby.
Okay.
And this is the first edition of Anabolic Academy with Danny Broadhurst and Fakhri Mubarak. Did I pronounce that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And me.
And you.
And me. Uncle John, whatever the hell you want to call me. So, all right. So basically on this, we're going to do this once a week, and we are going to take questions from people who email us, on DM us, message us, whatever the case may be, any questions. So we got a bunch of questions that we're going to ask, and these are basically all hardcore bodybuilding questions. So the first one I have is from a friend of mine that I used to go to Gold's Gym with, Anthony Armando. He DM'd me and he said, thoughts on reverse dieting after a show, pros, cons, and things to consider. And I never even heard of reverse dieting. What the hell does that mean? Does that mean just slowly going back onto a normal diet? Why do they have to rename things? I don't.
I think
it's
Danny
not really. What did you say?
I think Danny should start this one.
All right, go ahead, Danny.
You want me?
Go ahead.
I mean, no, it's just slowly adding carbohydrates and fats and calories in general back in after you compete, versus going crazy and giving yourself edema and overeating and messing yourself up, because you can really mess yourself up after a show. I mean, my first show I really messed myself up because I went and started eating crazy afterwards, and my ankles got all swollen. I had really bad edema. That's called edema. And it messed me up. So it's just slowly going back to, you're still dieting, you're just eating a little bit more, slowly, progressively.
Fakhri, is that something that everybody's individual, like, or do you give somebody like basically a basic diet to follow right after they're done competing?
I think the fact that everybody's hungry, the last couple of weeks or a month or so before the show, after the show, they go and pick out. To be honest, like my first show, I gained 30 pounds in 2 days.
Yeah, I think we all did that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's, and we think it's like, wow, look, we're getting bigger, we're getting stronger, and the weights are coming back up. But like Danny said, right? It's edema, and it's dangerous, not only because you're swelling up, but it's dangerous for the heart itself. It can cause a heart attack.
What exactly is edema?
Swelling of the of your limbs.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. All right.
Another issue also is our testosterone levels, because as we're pulling water and using diuretics, once we stop that after the show, your testosterone levels go through the roof, and that's actually what makes the weight gain go up so fast. It's not muscles like that, right? It's the amount of water your body's holding.
Wow. Yeah, these are things that if you don't have the right coach and you are a beginner, you really need to be careful with. There are plenty of coaches out there that really wouldn't guide you the right way, and I think I think it's worth spending the money on a decent coach so you get the right guidance. Because, like, the first time I competed, I didn't know any of that. I was 23 years old and I just started eating. I just ate and that I actually did wind up. My doctor, I said I gained 20 pounds in like a week or something like that. And I went to my physician and he sent me to the emergency room. Yeah, no, but it was a little scary, but I was 23, so he bounced back like that. All right, so the next question. This is from Victus Edge Media. He wants you guys to explain Ment-testosterone. What's it used for? And I guess any major side effects, so on and so forth. You want to take that fact, or you want Danny to take it? Let Danny take it, because that was his friend.
What's that?
Go ahead, Danny. You can take it.
Yeah, we'll both take it. It's just Ment is a 19-nor. So along the same lines as it's a nandrolone based drug. It's I would compare it to maybe a mixture between like Deca and Dianabol. It has a very short half-life. It's 6-hour half-life, I believe. So you have to inject it at least daily. That's what a lot of people say is not good about it. And it aromatizes, unlike Tren and Deca. It aromatizes a lot. So You need to take an AI with it. That's why it makes you so watery. But as far as a bulking drug, I think it's a great option. It's technically actually a pro hormone too, so you can find it actually on some of the peptide sites. Like I think Amino Asylum has it, but I don't use Amino Asylum. I've never ordered from them, but I believe I've seen it on there.
Okay.
Because it's not technically classified as a steroid. It was studied and used for male contraception, and they studied it for hormone replacement as well, but never did trials or anything.
Fakhri, what's the benefit of using Ment as opposed to, like, a Deca or a Dianabol or an EQ?
So anytime I open up my mouth is because I've actually tried something, right?
Okay.
Mint, I tried years ago after I started taking stuff in 2000. So I think the first time I tried Mint was around 2010. I just didn't like it. I just didn't like, the weight gain. I didn't like the feeling on it. It was just too harsh for me overall. The weight gain was fast, and I did get stronger, but it's sometimes you have to balance out. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, say sometimes it's gonna take a little bit longer, and and be a little bit safe. Mint is pretty toxic, but like Danny said, there's a lot of people that use it. Myself, I wouldn't recommend it. Just also with blood work. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry, I did do blood work. So I had done my blood work before I took it, just because of knowing, just because of research and what Mint does, and also actually, a lot of bodybuilders. So I did my blood work, and then I got my blood work checked about a month and a half while I was on Mint for 6 weeks, which is probably the amount of time you should be on there, no longer than 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And my numbers were a little high, so I'm not gonna say, I stopped because of the blood work. I just stopped because of the way I felt and the way I looked. It really never held too much water. So when I start holding water on something, it's all right. That's it.
Yeah, it aromatizes like crazy.
Really?
So it needs to hold a lot of water.
Well,
yeah, like Danabol. Okay.
That leads us
Gives
right.
me the lower back.
Yeah.
Does it really?
Yeah, like Danabol with the when you squat, you get the lower back pumps. For me, that's what I always get when I know I'm holding a lot of water. I get that lower back tightness.
I always had this mental barrier that I wasn't going to cross. And once the drugs got to be a little bit too, I don't know what's the word to use, a little bit too hard or harsh, I was like, nah, I'm not doing it. And I don't know, it probably didn't make me as good of a bodybuilder as I could have been. But like anytime it got past, like trend, I was like, nah, not doing it. Nah, not doing it. Like I remember I was, I went to go see a coach because I was going to do like the nationals at Team Universe, and he wanted me to use insulin, and that was one of the. I was like, nah, I'm not doing that. And I think there are a lot of people out there that don't have that mentality. I think the mentality is, if it's going to make me bigger, I got to try it. I got to use it. I got to use it. This one uses it. That one uses it. So on and so forth. I don't know, but that goes. Go ahead.
I think it depends on the person too.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I don't know. Some people can handle a lot more drugs than others.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it just depends on the person, and how it affects their blood work. Like Fox said.
Yeah.
Like for me, my blood work. My blood work's always perfect. Milos says I'm like a freak of nature, but then I have an echo. My left ventricle is enlarged.
Wow.
So I don't know. It just depends on the person and how they handle it. Like Fox said, he didn't feel good on it. If you don't, if something's affecting the way you train or the way you eat, then you got to stop it. It's not.
No, that's the truth. So if people don't know, because you brought up Milos, Danny is a disciple, an apostle, what do you want to call it, of Milos Sarcev. He works directly with him, and he does all his contest prep. So the information you're getting is coming from the genius Milos Sarcev. And Fakhri's reputation speaks for himself. So we don't. Well, that leads us right into the Novadex versus Arimidex question. What's the difference? What's the difference on when's best to take it? Who wants to go?
You want to go first?
I'll go first. So you guys have to remember, like, so Novadex is like first generation anti-estrogen, right? Anti-estrogens were created to help with female breast cancer. So when Novadex was created, it was created to stop the side effects of estrogen, not stop the production or slow down the production of estrogen, but stop the side effects.
Mhm.
So many people still think, well, Novadex is the same thing as the second generation Arimidex, third generation letrozole, fourth generation Aromacin. It's not. So Novadex blocks the side effects, but doesn't block the production. So as bodybuilders, we want to right the receptors, the estrogen receptors. So as bodybuilders, we want to try to stop, or slow down, the estrogen receptors from attracting estrogen, right? At the end of the day,
Right.
So Arimidex, letrozole, and Arimidex, letrozole, and Aromacin are much better choices.
Why is it suggested to use Novadex in a post cycle?
Post cycle, because so as a bodybuilder, you're taking an exorbitant amount of testosterone. The testosterone is aromatizing, and that means just aromatization is conversion to estrogen. So you want to block the aromatization, you want to block the conversion to estrogen of testosterone. You don't want to block the receptor, because you'll still convert it, but the receptor won't receive it. So that's if you're taking Novadex, but you'll take that post cycle, because post cycle you're not getting an exorbitant amount of testosterone. You're not getting testosterone at all. So all you're doing is blocking the receptor, because there's not going to be any aromatization. You follow what I'm saying?
Okay. Yes. Yeah.
But on a cycle, you have to stop the aromatization itself. Otherwise, it's going to convert. It's going to aromatize. You're basically going to be wasting your testosterone, and then all you're doing is blocking the receptor if you're taking Novadex. So it won't be received by the receptor, but at the same time, you're wasting your testosterone. So that's why you need an aromatase inhibitor, like Fox said, like letrozole. But yeah, there's a new generation too of SERM, which is called raloxifene, and that's the newest one. That's the newest version of Novadex. It's supposedly a little bit. Novadex is supposedly neurotoxic to some degree.
Danny, what was the name of it?
Raloxifene. It's a SERM. It's a selective estrogen receptor mod. So the SERMs, like Novadex, for breast are for premenopausal women, because premenopausal women are always going to produce estrogen. So then you need to block the receptor, and then fuck knows this, and then postmenopausal women, they're not producing estrogen anymore. They're producing testosterone in their adrenal glands, and the testosterone is converting to estrogen. So they need to prevent aromatization if they're postmenopausal, because they're no longer producing estrogen in their ovaries.
Now, does that one lower HDL as well? Now, HDL is good cholesterol, which we know.
I'm not. I would assume so. I think they all do.
Yeah.
Right? Isn't the argument that Aromacin doesn't quite lower it as much? I think it's probably a little bit better, like Aromacin, but I don't know if it's.
So
but yeah,
John,
yeah.
Yeah, so that's something, that's something to talk about, because a lot of people just take Arimidex. So your good cholesterol, too low of your good cholesterol is just as bad or even worse than your high cholesterol, right? Because if your numbers go really low, like in the teens or in the single digits of your HDLs, you're walking around like a heart attack. So a lot of people take Arimidex, not knowing from their blood work that, the good cholesterol, the HDLs are getting too low. So I know guys are telling me, oh man, my estrogen is like 5. I'm like, okay, that's not good.
Wow.
I mean, you don't want it at 5,000 or 500, but like 5 is way too low, right? Because we still have to produce some type of estrogen for the body to, to just to live off of.
What's a good range of estrogen for a bodybuilder?
Mine's like, that was mine's. Yeah.
What's that?
30 to 50.
Okay.
Yeah. 50, 60 is out of range, but at the same time, like some hormone replacement doctors will say that that's okay. A good hormone replacement doctor, like Fox said, they won't use AIs. They'll just get the testosterone right to the point where it's your levels are high, and then it's not aromatizing to the point where the estrogen is out of range. Because the aromatase inhibitors, like he said, and the SERMs are really what damage everything. Really what cause problems.
Wow. Okay. All right.
And now they're actually making compound testosterone with anastrol in it. So it's a combination as well.
Really?
Yes, it's coming from a compound pharmacy. You can pretty much compound anything.
Wow. That's impressive. I never heard of that. That would be interesting.
They used to have the testosterone with the estrogen in it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
They had testosterone with estrogen in it.
Testosterone.
Yeah,
Echinate. What
fucking
was
big.
it? It started with the UN. It was
Oh,
testosterone.
yeah, I know what you're talking about. Okay. Yeah, they have it in, they use it in sus, don't they? That particular testosterone?
No,
Little
no,
bit.
no, no, no,
I'm
no.
thinking of
It's
something
it
else.
has estrogen in it. It's testosterone. I think it. I don't know what ester it was, but it had estrogen in it. It make you big.
Yeah, I
It's
guess.
all-
Holy shit.
So,
Tren too, right? Tren has a form of so Tren is more progesterone based, but there's a higher form of progesterone based from Tren. So people have to be careful which Tren they buy and use.
That's
You know?
actually another question, actually. There's 3 types of trend.
Yeah.
Am I accurate? There's acetate, enanthate, and there's hex.
That we should take as bodybuilders, but there's another type of Tren that's injected into cattle that when people used to buy the pellets and make Tren from the pellets, yeah, it would cause, what was it called?
Finaplex.
Finaplex was Finaplex was for the actual the pellets that we use as bodybuilders to grind down. But there's another form of Tren that will cause the growth of cattle, which it's not testosterone or DHT based, right? The cattle will grow fucking into these monsters because they wanted to chop them up and get more meat. So that was the other issue. But as bodybuilders, yeah, you're right. There's 3 trends that we should take.
Okay. And what is the benefit or the drawback from all 3? I mean, when I use trend, I generally just use enanthate. I don't really like anything fast absorbing because to me it's a pain in the ass, and the differences in the gains are like splitting hairs, in my opinion. So I always use long acting stuff. I never use fast acting stuff. You hit yourself twice a week, Arimidex, and you're kind of good. But what's the difference? What would be the benefit as opposed to the acetate, enanthate, and hex, and especially the hex, because I don't see too many people using that.
It's expensive.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, that's why. But what's that? Fuck. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just the timing, right? So it just goes back to half-lives and the timing. So I guess this could go back to the whole argument on testosterone propionate and testosterone, nathinate and cypionate, right?
Mm-hmm.
People always say that the propionate is a safer one, right? So let's take the propionate because it's safer. Now, it's not safer, and the reason why they took it off the market is because it's not safer, right? If something goes into your body and it spikes up, it's going to cause more side effects at the same exact milligrams. So if you're taking propionate, like a lot of people will cut, they'll cut the testosterone, cypionate, and nathinate in the last month to put in propionate. So they're going from 750 grams of test down to 300 milligrams of propionate a week, which not only you lose muscle mass, of course, and strength, and your body just, starts getting smaller, but the fact that, trying to match up the propionate with the nathinate and the cypionate, just as an ester, we're not talking about any compound, just as an ester itself is more dangerous because it's peaking higher and faster in your body. And then you have to repeatedly take the shots over and over again, which will be the same thing with Tren.
Mm.
I've
also seen it, which has been very popular in the last couple of years, is when you have all 3 in one.
Yeah.
I think it's called
Yeah, most of those are bullshit, man. The people who make those, that's a bullshit.
Okay,
they're full of shit. It's probably just one of the if it
That's
is.
true. You're right.
yeah, because I've used that one, and I've used all 3 in the past, and
10 grams.
Good.
Yeah. 10 grams of raw Tren hex is like $380.
Yeah.
And 10 grams of raw Tren E is like 120.
Really?
And you're not gonna know the difference.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So there's no way they're mixing the Tren hex. You're talking, you're gonna pay 110 a bottle at least for Tren hex. If it's real. It's like Primo.
Wow, really?
Primo's one of the most expensive powders.
But I mean, the other thing I would say, some people, and from what I've heard, I don't necessarily agree with this, but they'll do the short ester because they'll be like, it's their first time using Tren, right? So they'll say, I want to see how it feels quickly, because I don't want to have it in my system for a long time, because if I get really bad side effects, then I can get rid of it. But to Fox's point, you're going to get worse side effects if you're using a short ester. So I don't know if that's necessarily a valid argument, but that's an argument that I've heard people say, that they want to use a short ester because if they get side effects, that way they can eliminate it immediately and they don't have to wait for it to leave their system, right? Is it same as using an NPP versus a nandrolone decanate, right?
Okay. I've used all three. I've used the Tritren, I've used acetate, and I have enanthate, and I always prefer the enanthate because I like long acting stuff. And for some reason, I don't know if it's just me, but in my experience, I only got trend cough with acetate. Is that common, and why is that?
I from my experience, going back, from using real Parabolin, the old French bottles with the, with the skull with the X on it. Yeah, those are that's. Go ahead, Danny.
Yeah, that's a long one too. That's 3 weeks half-life. That's the longest half-life of Tren.
Right. So we used to take like a bottle every 10 days. If we wanted to get crazy, and that was 75 milligrams. So we used to take about 150 milligrams to say we want to get crazy a week. Now guys are taking like 600 milligrams of Tren, up to 800 milligrams of Tren. Then so we're going from Parabolin, we're going to manufacturing Tren, and then we're going to the pellets. The pellets being more, which I don't even think that you can buy the pellets anymore. So the pellets, like you would buy the pellets, they were cattle pellets. You would just, you would grind them down. It was like you had to be like a little scientist, and I was great at it. My Tren was black. My Tren wasn't brown. My Tren was black.
Okay.
And it was really dark brown. So to be honest with you, my Tren was probably 300 milligrams, CC. So from my experience, the pellets, which I knew were 100% real, right? Because they were pellets that were sold to cattle, and you would buy them yourself. Pellets always made me cough a lot more, even if I made the Tren a little lighter, like the color that we're used to buying it, but the pellets itself. So that might be the strength of the actual powder itself.
Yeah, because I don't think there's a definitive answer, right, Danny? Like usually I've heard Tren acetate, and then I've heard people reacting the same to the enanthate. What's your take on it?
I'm Fox probably right. It probably has to do with the amount per ml, but I don't know. I have no clue. I've only had it a few times, so
yeah, that's another thing. Like at the beginning of the cycle with Tren, you cough, and then your body gets kind of accustomed to it, and you don't cough much anymore. But I remember the first time I ever took Tren. I mean, I was in the bathroom for like 20 minutes coughing. My face was red. I'm like, what the? I actually got nervous and spoke to my trainer. It was actually, who it was? In fact, it was Guy. It was Guy Del Corso. Yeah. I went to see him in the gym, and because I was competing, and I said, I said, he finished my sentence. Right? I was like, every time I take a hit of Tren, he goes, you're coughing? I'm like, yeah. He goes, that's how you know it's real. I'm like, oh, okay. And that was it.
Yeah. So funny story. So a couple of my friends, right? They used it in front of me, and they were coughing like hell. Oh, they fucking died. Yeah. And they're like, well, what should I do? I'm like, no, it's working. It's fucking good. You know what I'm saying? That means it's working, bro.
Yeah.
All right. Two more questions, and then that'll be the end of the first edition of Anabolic Academy. IGF versus IGF-1, the benefits, pros, and cons, and the difference.
Go ahead. Increlex, you meant Increlex.
Who's taking it? Fakhri, you want to take it?
No, Danny can go first.
Go ahead, Danny.
Well, from my understanding, this is a tough one. From my understanding, Increlex is the most stable form of IGF-1, and that's the pharmaceutical brand IGF-1. They don't make LR3 or DES for consumption from children. The Increlex is what they use for children with growth deficiencies. And I don't know when that's prescribed versus when they prescribe growth hormone. I don't know how that works, but I do know that Increlex is the only one that's approved for children to use, and it's you can't get it off label, and without insurance it's like $20,000 a box or something. So what was I going to say? Yeah, and then LR3 is the long chain IGF, which you can get from the peptide sites, and DES is the fast acting one, which actually needs to be shot into each muscle head. So it's not systemic. But yeah, Fuck probably knows better than me. I don't. What would you say about the Fuck?
So from my experience and according to blood work, I've run Increlex and I ran growth hormone. I ran growth hormone from 2000 straight to 2018. I mean, if I was off probably at any of those years, it was probably like a total maybe a couple of months. You know, so if you really think about it, maybe like I don't know, like a day or two a year. You know, if you calculate everything. So from my experience and from my clients' experience, just from friends themselves, you know, doing the GH, you know, the Serrano kits, you know, the human tropes, you know, the real, you know, somatropin, 191 amino acids, the pituitary gland releases.
Yeah.
Our IGF-1 levels on blood work was always normal high. So normal high meaning it showed that we were on GH, right? It showed that we were, you know, in the mid 400s, 450s. Now, taking out the GH and just using Increlex, when Increlex first came out, that was, you know what, let's try this, because why do both of them at the same time? Using the Increlex, which is, you know, prescribed exactly for what, you know, for what Danny said, you know, growth in children, and it's not prescribed. So if you think about it, it's prescribed for growth in children, but it's not prescribed for AIDS patients. So
No,
GH,
only
yeah,
Serostim. Only
right,
Serostim.
only Serostim is
Nothing else.
right,
Yeah.
right, 100%. So just using the Increlex, we didn't see an increase of IGF. So IGF-1 levels through blood work, IGF levels through blood work was, you know, in the mid 2s to 300s. So that's being being normal. So, you know, me asking a couple of doctors and us doing, you know, just realizing what was going on, we realized that since Serrano's human tropes and, you know, somatropin is basically, you know, the same pattern that the pituitary gland releases, when the pituitary gland releases it, or you're injecting the same exact amino acid pattern, you know, with the GH, it has to be converted through the liver in order for IGF-1 to be increased in our body as bodybuilders and as AIDS patients as well, right? Because if you know, they prescribe as the AIDS patients. So Increlex has always been used better for spot injections. People swear it increases, you know, especially like, you know, your biceps, triceps. People swear that it increases the growth of that certain area. Myself speaking, I've used Increlex. I've always had access to Increlex, real pharmaceutical Increlex, and I never really used it because of the reason I just stated.
Yeah, I've heard people think it's dangerous too. I know Milos has said that it causes people to get stomach cancer.
Get stomach
So
what?
I don't stomach cancer.
Really?
I mean, you know, we know that increased IGF causes cancer, you know, and that's a fact. So you know, maybe because there's not the buffer of the liver having to, because that's what I talked to you guys about before, because I had chemotherapy when I had my cancer. Well, I can take 20 units of GH and my IGF will not be above 350, you know, and you know, my friend can take the same GH and his will be 600 and he takes 6 units. So because you don't have a buffer of the liver having to convert it, it could be more dangerous in terms of getting cancer.
Wow. Okay. I remember using IGF-1 once and it made me very sick. Yeah. I don't know if that's, and
it could cause like a similar feeling as taking too much insulin, but it's not, it's psychos. It's not actually low blood sugar, but it feels like it's low blood sugar.
Yeah.
Because it's the same structure, right? Insulin like growth factor. It's a similar structure.
Okay. All right. All right. And last question. Preferred bulking cycle. I think all three of us could actually talk about this one. But fact, when somebody comes to you, like a client, and says, you know, I want to do a serious bulking cycle, you know, maybe he's a moderate to advanced bodybuilder. What do you recommend?
So my favorite cycle for putting on size was always testosterone, EQ, oil Turinabol, and GH.
Oh yeah, I love that.
Those oil Turinabols are the best.
I love
I love oil.
Yeah, I agree.
I thought I was the only one. Anytime I
Oh,
ever
I love it.
anytime I ever told somebody, I prefer
You know,
Turinabol,
right?
they say I'm nuts.
I just told you I agreed with you. You told me that the other day.
What's that?
You told me that the other day, and I told you I agreed with you.
Oh no, I mean, okay, I get it, but other people in the past,
Yeah, I don't understand why. I mean, it's pretty much the same structure as D-ball, right? I mean, same well, it's not.
Way better.
Yeah, it's not the same structure, but it's similar. It's similar to what D-ball does, but without the water retention. So all Turinabol.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah. Go ahead, Danny.
go. No, go.
So all
No, no, no,
Turinabol was created by the Germans in order to avoid, all the
That's what I was
Olympic
gonna
testing
say.
and shit. Yeah. So
That's what I was going to say.
yeah, so it was around. It was around for a while before we even. I think finally we found out about it when officially, right? When Germany, Germany went down and became a united Germany. But that was created by the Germans in order to pass all the drug testing. When the
Really?
IOC started. Yeah, that was the
Yeah,
origination.
it's the only steroid ever created for performance enhancement.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And it was created for performance enhancement. No other steroid was. I mean, you could say Equip was because it was created for horses, to run faster. But
Right.
you can't. No other steroid was made for humans to increase performance. So yeah, I definitely would agree. I like Trenbolone a lot.
So as far as like milligrams wise, somebody who's moderate to advanced, I would say 750 milligrams test, 400 milligrams of EQ, and the sweet point of all Turinabol is 30, but I think 50 milligrams of all Turinabol gives you enough gains. Now people of course go much higher and everything else, and like, oh, fact, you weighed whatever amount of weight and you were a lot bigger than we, and you use all this, but that's pretty much. Yeah, I've used a lot more. I have. I'm not gonna lie. We'll see. If we can sit here and talk about dosages, I could tell you what I've used. But I think that amount, that right there is a good starting point to put on a good amount of weight, especially if everything's real.
And you also mentioned GH. How much GH would you recommend on top of that cycle?
Yeah. So the cool thing about GH is that I've done 4 IUs all the way up to a whole bottle of Sarcev a day, which is 16 IUs.
Oh yeah, 16. Yeah, 16.
Yeah, 16 I use because what is 6 milligrams?
8 milligram, I think. 8 milligrams.
8 milligrams.
Yeah,
So 16 I use. So I've used between 4 to 16 I use a day. Starting wise, 4 I used for a couple of years, and then let's take 8. All right, let's take a bottle. Let's take this. Let's eat that. But the fact is that my personal IGF-1 levels and what I've seen from blood work from other people, and I have thousands of blood work. I have clients and I have friends that have always done me blood work. There's not much difference in GH once you get to a certain point. So, like with the Liver King, and a lot of other guys you see online, well, this person's taking 20 IUs of GH, this person's taking 30 IUs of GH. I just personally speaking, I don't, listen, I was 285 pounds at my highest.
Wow.
I walked around 250 for over a decade. I was 260 for years, 270 for years. I held 280 for a long time.
Wow.
We're talking about 4 to 6 IUs is what I use. And my IGF level was close to 500 milligrams, 500 on the blood count.
All right. So Danny, same client comes to you, wants a decent bulking cycle. He's a moderate to an advanced lifter. What do you recommend?
Yeah, I would. Fox pretty on point, obviously. 750 to 1,000 tests. Even you even go at size 1,200, but honestly, it depends the source, obviously. But even with pharma, like if I'm getting pharma tests, I'll use 600.
Yeah, I agree.
Because I feel like the Watson stuff, I think it's just a lot stronger. But if it's UTL, I'll use 1,200 sometimes. I don't know. I feel like I feel the pharma much better. But if it's a client, I just put probably 750 to 1,000 tests. Usually I'll do like 6 to 8 week mini cycles, and I'll switch the esters. So it's kind of bro science, but switch from Susanon to Testi every 6 to 8 weeks, and then other compounds for a bulking cycle. I would say I would do like. Maybe I would do another like an EQ or NPP or DECA one of those three. Then I would probably have I would do those at like 400 to 600 milligrams, and then I would do maybe another injectable, like maybe well, let's see, maybe like a Primo or a DHB, something like that, at like maybe 400 milligrams, and then an oral like T-ball or Anadrol. But I like T-ball, but the T-ball I would only take. The Anadrol I would only take for like 3 or 4 weeks of the cycle.
What'd you say, Fakhri?
And then switch.
I'm one that Anadrol just messes up. I get bad headaches.
Yeah.
My appetite gets lowered.
Yes, that's what happens to me.
Very uncomfortable. Very
Me
very
too.
uncomfortable, man.
Yeah.
And I've tried it many times.
The bulking cycle.
What's crazy? Look, I'm sure you know this, but the clinical dose of Anadrol for children is 5 milligrams per kilo, I believe.
Really?
No. Sorry. 1 milligram per. Yeah. It's 5 milligrams per kilo, I believe. It's like for me. For I did the math. It was like 600 milligrams would be the clinical dose
a day.
That's the pharmacy the clinical dosage. Look up clinical dosage. Hold on, let me look. Dosage.
What would children need Anadrol for?
Anemia.
Well, for anemia, exactly.
Okay.
1 to 2 milligrams per kilogram. So do the math on that.
Bro.
It's crazy, right? Yeah, right. Yeah, and you know who told me that was Milos.
50 milligrams blows us up, man. I know people who've taken 100, like they like put on like 35 pounds, like in 3 weeks.
The more Anadrol I take, the less I eat.
Milos has told me about guys taking.
Yeah, we know a few of them.
500. Yeah, and
Danny, let me ask you a question. How do you feel, since you mentioned, you mention taking EQ and DEC and MPP at the same time, or do you separate them?
No, one of the three.
Why do you separate them? I think it's important for people to know.
You there, Danny? Oh, he froze up on us. He froze. Go ahead, Fakhri. You could take it. You can go for it.
I mean, from my experience, DEC and MPP are Anadrol-based drugs, and EQ tends to increase that as well. So when you take a Arimidex, or like we said, Arimidex, letrozole, or Romacin, you're trying to block the estrogen, but you're not blocking the progesterone and the prolactin increase. So using EQ and DEC at the same time has always been a no-no for me, just because the blood work has always come back, with the progesterone being high. It's going to increase. There is drugs to take, to block progesterone, but if you're taking the estrogen and the Anadrol or the MPP at the same time, DECA, it's going to increase it too high. You're going to hold way too much water, and you're not going to be able to stop the water retention from just taking the anti-estrogens.
The bulking cycle that I always went to was always I always liked sus as opposed to the other testosterones, but I would change the testosterones too. But I always do 750 to 1,000 milligrams of sus, 600 of DECA, and then I would do 50 to 100 milligrams of D-bol a day. I always like D-bol because it didn't really kill my appetite as much as Anadrol. And the Turinabol always made me very hard and vascular. So I used to like throwing it when I was trying to get in contest shape.
D-bol gives you like a sense of well-being, right? It makes you feel happier too.
Does it really? You might be right about that. Yeah. I never realized that. Yeah, you might be right about that.
One of the studies was how I forgot where it was, a peer-to-peer study too. So it was validated, and it was a fact of how does the difference between D-bol and other it was an old study by Siva. So the company that created D-bol, was the company that ran that study. So I mean, they probably ran the study to try to sell more D-bol pharmaceutical wise.
Wow.
But there is a peer-to-peer study out there you can read.
All right. Where's Danny? We lost him. Fuck. All right, whatever. We lost him. So that's going to conclude the first edition of Anabolic Academy. We'll be back next week. But Fak, you want to stick around and we'll talk about this, all right, we'll talk about this whole Amin Ali. Let me send another link to both of you.
Okay.
And I'll cut this.
Same email.
Same email. All right. So I'll send a link, and then we'll talk about that topic. All right.
I'll be right back.
You got it, man.